Hi, welcome everybody. I'm Louisa Taylor. I'm the General Manager of Canterbury Tech, and I'm just going to be doing a few Canterbury Tech updates before I hand over to our Acting Chair, Seiko, who's going to introduce our awesome speaker for today. If you would like to drop in any topics that you would like to see in future lunchtime sessions, please feel free to drop those into the session, and we'll pick those up afterwards and look for some awesome speakers to satisfy anything that you're really wanting to learn about in your lunchtime over the next few months. Please note that we're also going to be sending out our annual survey to our members soon, so please look out for that in your emails shortly, and I would love to get your opinions on all sorts of things about how we can continue to provide an awesome service to our members. So please let us know what you'd like to see. We obviously couldn't do any of this without our awesome sponsors. So we've got UC School of Business, who are running the most relevant MBA program and executive education program in the country. They've just released some awesome new courses. One which I think will appeal to lots of people is how to delegate. So if you're someone that struggles to do that, that's a really great one to look up. Also, an amazing public speaking uh, a course with Michael Philpott, who many of you in Canterbury will know as an awesome local speaking coach, and also a product management boot camp with Tasneem Gould. So lots of awesome things on their executive education program. Check those out. Also, Stratos Technology Partners, helping you with your Microsoft suite. These guys are doing a lot of work in AI and preparing Microsoft companies for the future with AI. So please get in touch with them if that sounds like you. They've been long-term supporters of Canterbury Tech. We're very happy to have them on board. We do have now a couple of rare sponsorship spots. So if you would like to join us as an annual sponsor, please do get in touch, because we've got a couple of spots there just opened up, and we would love to have you on board. I can talk you through what that entails, so feel free to get in touch. We also have the amazing support of these companies who we use their services. So we've just recently moved our web hosting over to SiteHost. I've been really impressed by their environmental concern and mostly solar driven hosting here in New Zealand. So that's pretty exciting. And Ridiculous Digital, who have just started helping us with all of our SEO needs. Integration Works, helping us integrate some of our systems, and Crescent Consulting for our HR and helping bring team members on. So awesome. Thanks very much for your support. We love the work that you do. If you are a company member, one of the membership benefits is that you can actually submit blogs, and we select a couple of blogs every month to highlight in our newsletter. So if you've got something topical which shows off your expertise in an area, please go onto our website. You can see under that news and views sections, there's a submit a blog form, and you can submit it all there with a choice of a nice image. So we'd love to see more of you sharing your expertise about your particular areas. So look forward to receiving some of those. Let us know if you want to talk about a topic, and we can help you with that as well. That's all self-serve from the website. What is happening very soon is the Tech Summit. We're getting really excited, and actually just checking the numbers before I jumped online before, and we are actually at capacity. So we're going to oversell a little bit, because we know that every year a few people don't make it, but just know that there's only about 50 tickets that we're releasing now. So it really is those last chance to get your tickets. It's very exciting for us that we've essentially sold out or got to our capacity of 700 there. So you can get a student ticket, you can get a member's ticket, or you can get a non-member's ticket. But what a great reason to join as a member. You can join as a member today and then go ahead and book your ticket. So it's really easy to enjoy both of those things. It really is the most reasonably priced conference that we know of, and we like to keep it really reasonably priced through the support of all of our sponsors. I do know, I just talked to Alex, our Tech Summit manager. She's just told me that all of our exhibition spaces are now sold out, but we do have one platinum sponsorship opportunity left. So if that sounds like you, please do get in touch with Alex from the homepage of our website. and you can find out about that. Chance to get in front of hundreds of tech leaders on the 5th of September. Now we're trying a couple of new things this year. One of them is that we are running some pre-summit workshops. Now we have some quite exciting international speakers. We are flying Rich Mironov in from Portland. And Jen, our marketing manager, was actually in Portland last week or over the last month, and had a chance to catch up with him, which is pretty exciting. He is a world leader in product management, and he is running 2 workshops for us, one for product leaders, product managers. It's a masterclass. And the second one is for CEOs and senior leaders. So if you're a founder of a product company, or you are looking to start one, or you are already leading a sizable product company, he's used to working with the top managers around the world. What he does is he takes you through a range of real scenarios and gets you to think about your complex decision making. So some really thought-provoking and I think actionable insights that you'll get out of that. If you sign up today, we will give you also a personally signed copy of his book, The Art of Project Management. So if that sounds like you can get a special signed book if you sign up today. So we'll be watching signups. Check that out all on our website. You can find out about that, or on the techsummit.nz website. There's all the pre-summit workshop information there. Just a little highlight about some of the Tech Summit. We've actually had so many speakers that wanted to talk about AI. We removed the lunchtime keynote, and we've actually put together these 3 awesome perspectives from Canterbury businesses about different parts of AI. So we've got Andy Masters, previously from Onside, and he is going to be talking about how he's actually created a team of people, of AIs, instead of using humans. So his team works for him and does all the work. So that's pretty exciting. Deeper technical talk. We've got Michelle talking about the experiments and the time she gave people to experiment in her team with AI so that they could start to get comfortable, and what the outcomes of those experiments were. And then we've got David Carter from Stratos talking about what you need to actually get ready. How do you get ready for an AI project for someone like Stratos helping you? So that 3 completely different perspectives. So pretty exciting to hear what we're doing in Canterbury at this massive change of technology this year. Last thing to mention, probably before I hand over to Seiko, is that if you want to know about more of our events, please do subscribe to the calendar. If you go to our website and go to the events section, at the top of the page there's a subscribe button, which means that you can actually get our whole calendar into your calendar, so you'll never miss one of our Canterbury Tech events again. But please do watch out for the 3rd Tuesday lunchtime sessions. Next month, because of the Tech Summit, we'll be taking a break, but we'll be back on normal program from October. And so now I'd love to introduce our acting chair, Seiko, who's going to introduce our awesome speaker for today. Thanks, guys.
Hello, team. Hi, I'm Sekou. I'm the acting chair of Canterbury Tech. Thank you, Louisa, for that. Welcome to another episode of Lunchtime Tech Session, where I will MC you with my Canterbury Tech t-shirt on and a pajama bottom. Before you go and judge me, do not judge me. We all know we have been there. So let's move on to some ground rules over here. So the ground rules are no turning on the mic until I tell you to, otherwise you will be immediately expelled. Actually, I can't do that. Somebody else will do that for me. Use the comment section to put in your thoughts besides talking to your dog or to your colleagues, and place your questions so that I can pick it up to ask myself. Or if it's interesting enough, I'll encourage you to ask directly, but only the questions that is in the comment section will be encouraged to be asked. So make sure you put the questions when Michael is starting to do his presentation. And coming back to the community, hi, Jay Garden from Littleton. Probably we'll see you in one of the Christchurch events. And Richard Keeble, welcome to Rolleston, Christchurch, and hope you have a better experience from Auckland here. So before I go and introduce Michael, I want to send, I love emojis, people who has been here, I love emojis. One of the things that I want to do is I want you to send a snail emoji if you're a beginner tester, a beaver emoji if you're an intermediate tester, and a squid, or I don't know what that is, but if you're a senior tester, and a unicorn emoji if you're not a tester, but you're here for your curiosity. So go and put that so we get to know how many people are there from, yeah, that it's coming, great. A lot of unicorns, and yeah, some senior testers, great. And lemon, that doesn't mean anything. Excuse me, Angus. What is that? We never had. Okay, there's a lot of people who's not into testing actually. Beaver, some intermediate testing, and some snails. Feng Shu, Christine Miller, welcome, welcome. And yeah, okay. So I think we have a lot more outsiders according to the poll, and some senior tester and some junior tester. Oh, actually, intermediate tester are taking over. Oh my God. Okay. Blair, you have to use the beaver emoji. I'm not going to count your vote otherwise. Yes. Cool. Great. I think we have the vote here. I'm going to introduce Michael, who could be aware of the potato. Come on, Matthew. So I'm going to introduce Michael, who's going to present here about Good Enough for Mom or Dad, software testing at Ryman in healthcare. And he's going to talk about the overall success and quality of a project or product, which is rarely a result of a single decision. And he says it's the culminations of hundreds of micro decisions, which I'm curious to learn about more, where he pushes, where every day the team members make it by pushing towards the same vision. So I think to give a quick introduction about Michael, he's been the tech lead at Ryman Healthcare for a while and is passionate about technology and the gains families, communities, and nations. There's a lot of things that he has done. He's been part of the Christchurch ecosystem for a long time. And fun fact, he used to be a chair of Canterbury Tech back in 2014 to 2016. So happy to welcome here. But before we even pass it on to him, I want him to talk about the journey into software testing. Michael, introduce about yourself and why software testing out of everything.
Yeah, sure. So I won't share quite yet. Share screen.
Yeah.
Kia ora, Seku, and kia ora, everyone. Yeah, we were talking before everyone jumped on just about everyone's journey into tech, but especially into software testing is quite unique. And my journey has certainly been one that I didn't hit a certain point and plan out a linear career 10 years ahead at all. Let me just go back one. So yeah, as Seku mentioned, I was part of Canterbury Tech back in 2014, 15, 16. But before I got into tech, just to give a little bit of personal background, so I'm from down in the deep south in Otago. I grew up on a sort of small farm in the middle of nowhere, and tech was never on my radar at all. I actually, left school really young. Myself and the education system were not a good match at all, and I got in quite a lot of trouble at school, and checked out when I was about 14. Officially left when I just turned 16 and went farming. And as many of us do, I got married quite young and ended up living in the Brazilian Amazon when I was 21, in the north of Brazil, working on a sort of a community development project, developing biosand water filters, actually, in a project with the university out of Calgary in Canada, and came back after several years living there just below the border with French Guiana, back to Christchurch in 2006, and was really like, what am I going to do? Do I go back farming? That's the only thing I know. There was a lot of talk about the technology industry in Canterbury, but I had no idea. And it was actually a friend of mine was out on a surfing trip and came home one day after a day out somewhere on the peninsula, and he called into a surf shop in town to get some wax. And Lincoln University had a flyer on the counter shaped in a surfboard of a new software and IT degree they were just putting together. And he took that home, I had a look at it, phoned the university, went out there, and in 2007 started my journey into tertiary education. And yeah, I mean, it was really life-changing for me. I had never achieved anything at school. I got 12% in school cert maths, not because I was stupid at maths, just because I just couldn't get my head into the sort of test and exam phase. So going into study at university, as an adult student at this time, I was 27, I was shit scared. I remember at the end of the first semester waiting for the first results of the test I'd just done, and I didn't sleep for a couple of nights. I was so nervous that, all these thoughts, I'm not good enough for this. What am I doing here? Really questioning whether it was the right place for me. But the results started to come back, and they were very good. Actually, I got something like 90% on the first test, and I really began to develop that love of learning. And I went through the 3 years at university. It was an awesome degree, more sort of applied computing than computer science. But I thought at the end of that, if I can graduate with a bachelor's degree in tech, absolutely anyone in this country can, with the right support around them. And it was really through that experience that I began to think about the digital divide that we have, the gaps we have in New Zealand in accessing this types of education, and surely there must be a better way to partner with education, even right down at the primary level, to help kids get access. So I was very lucky to meet someone who influenced me during my study. I was dead keen on, I'm just going to be a developer, software developer, that's what you do. And I met actually an old friend, Bruce, who at that time was the HR manager at SunGard. And he just started to talk about the types of skill sets they looked for in software test engineers, and just how difficult it was globally to find people that matched these skills. And he was one that really managed to convince me that there's another life out of just being a software developer, being a technical test engineer. And so I went back to uni before I finished and told everyone, well, I'm going to be a software tester. Managed to get my first job when I graduated at Trimble Navigation, which was awesome, in Christchurch, and then jumped out to Ryman Health 2011 when they had just opened down here, 2012. And it was during that time at Ryman Health, I'm not sure if they still do, they used to run these one week, Ian McRae used to advocate these 1 week hackathons. And it was like this company competition, who can come up with a new idea, and then at the end of it, you pitch it, and then they fund it. And we put in this idea of, we're going to start this thing called Code Club. There's not enough kids coming through learning these skills, and we're going to go out and teach 9 to 12-year-olds how to code. And so it won the event. We got some support, and we started our first Code Club Aotearoa over on Portsmouth Street in Aranui with kids from Aranui Primary and Aranui High. So that was back in 2012, and I've just reconnected with our first ever student who's just graduated from tertiary. If I'm not careful, this will make me cry, because it's a full circle. He just graduated like a month ago, and is currently has a job opportunity lined up here in Christchurch that he's currently working on. So that's really exciting. And I just need to catch myself for a second here. We're coming to land on testing. So working with Code Club Aotearoa at that time, and then I started volunteering at Canterbury Tech, and was a member of the committee for 1 year. Second year, I was pushed. I encouraged into becoming deputy chair, and then in 2016 became chair, which I really enjoyed. But I do take my hats off to everyone who does work in a volunteer capacity, and especially for Canterbury Tech, it is a big ask. So well done for everything that you're doing. So in 2021, I stepped out of working for Digital Future and Co Club and joined the team at Ryman Healthcare. My official title is Test Lead, but I work across with many people in the development teams at Ryman. So the talk you're about to hear today, just for the next 10 or 15 minutes, we're going to share about what testing looks like and means for us at Ryman, the core values that we really encourage, and the way that we get teams working together. So I'm going to jump in. Cool. So I quite like looking at this picture. I learned yesterday that this is in fact probably not an RAF bomber, it's an American bomber, but the story goes in the Second World War, these aircraft were doing bombing raids over Europe and coming back into England and landing, and the ones that made it back were just shot to pieces. And they began, the RAF began to look at where the bullet holes were and began analysing the data and putting some, a roadmap and a plan together to better protect these planes, and put some sort of body armour around where all the holes were. And one guy put his hand up and said, "Well, have you ever thought why what's happening to the planes that are shot where there are gaps, and of course the planes that are shot where there are no bullet holes here are never making it back to England." And we talk about this a lot with the testing mindset is often quite a different way of seeing the world than the rest of the team, but we definitely value that. So I'd like to quickly introduce our software test lead for Ryman, Andrew Robbins, and he's just going to share a little bit of what we sort of call our school of thought and the thinking underneath what we do.
Hi, so for those of you who don't know me, my name's Andrew Robbins. I'm test practice lead here at Ryman Healthcare. And Michael pitched this as you get to talk about testing philosophy. And that's something that I've put a lot of thought into over the years. And I think the testing philosophy that we have here at Ryman can probably best be summed up as we want our testers to be able to ask themselves the question, what is the best use of my time right now? And then be empowered to act accordingly on whatever the answer to that question might be. So as I'm sure you can imagine, a lot of things need to line up in order to make that happen. So testers need to be empowered with the right mindset, the right skills, and have the right operating environment and capabilities. Stakeholders also need to trust testers, and we need to get rid of what, in my view, are some unhelpful views around things like what constitutes best practice. For example, in general, I'd rather Ryman testers were thinking about how to enable their testing that they need to do rather than pre-scripting tests in advance. I want them to plan to be flexible, plan to be responsive, because they know that this is a really good use of their time. The heuristic we try to apply here is we don't plan testing, we plan for testing. I think we did a pretty good job of planning for testing on the resident experience program, and what you will see presented here today is an example of what happens when testers are empowered to make good decisions in a high trust environment. And I think it makes for a pretty compelling story. So I'm going to hand back to you, Michael.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. I'm just going to drop a link into the chat. So this is from one of our digital partners, Journey, but what we're sharing about today in the project is called Resident Experience. So this is non-clinical software. This is software created, our audience are Ryman residents, typically 80 plus. I've worked with plenty of residents installing our tech themselves who are also in their 90s, and we do have a couple 100 plus as well, I know of. So what is the tech stack that we're working with? Well, we have as I said, and you'll see in this link I've put there, we have a suite of mobile applications that go across Android, iOS, phone, tablet. We also have an admin portal with which is essentially the web front end for the Ryman Village staff. So they enter all the content in there. They can send out messaging that go out to all the residents that have installed. And then all of this, of course, is connected through an API layer. And then we're sort of have an Azure backend with a bunch of stuff going on back there. For the testing side of things, everything we do is automated. So for the web front-end side, we're using Cypress. I actually wasn't aware of Cypress until 2 years ago. And when this project was stood up, it was a complete greenfields project. There was very little out there, I think, globally for our group of end users, 85 plus, but also internally, we had no infrastructure, no test tools, no pipelines. So we were really had to do a lot of investigation around the tools that we chose. So Cypress, for the API layer, we use Ready API. And then on the app side, we use native Android and iOS. We use Espresso and Xcode, a test package. We also do performance testing. And that's probably, we might schedule performance testing once or twice a year using JMeter, free and open source. And that's really depends on what's being released. If it's a major piece of new functionality, and just to give the whole team confidence that we're heading in the right direction, we might schedule that. But in the Azure pipeline land, we've also embedded performance tests. So every night we have the automated tests running over the latest build of master that gets deployed onto a given test system. And then we also run automatically a suite of JMeter performance tests against the build. And those tests analyze the current day's results against the average over the last, whatever it is, 30 days. And if it's like 1% out or slower or whatever that number is, it emails the dev leads. And we do have some good examples of a commit that did unintentionally slow things down beyond what we say is okay. I guess one of the major, actually, I'll keep moving before I get onto that bit. Cool. So the team working, as I said, we've got 4 dev teams. We have 3 internal that are Ryman, and then we have 1 up in Auckland, Journey. But we really just see them as another Ryman team. They're deeply embedded in our systems and processes and our communication. So they're doing all the app development up there, but we embed test professionals. Myself, for example, work in that team currently as a test engineer. And each team across resident experience within Ryman has a dev lead. The dev lead may have a test background as well. We do have an example of that. We have 2 or 3 devs per team, a dedicated test engineer, technical test engineer, and UX designers who give time each week as well, each sprint. And then sort of across the top, we have obviously a product team, which is managing roadmap backlogs. Each team has a product owner. And then we have a DevOps team that works across all of Ryman, but obviously they service resident experience as well. And on the automation side, we've worked really close with them over the last 2 years to get that all up and running. And then we do have, I did want to call out Lynn. We do now have, we started off with several test automation specialists building up the framework. And then we've done, I think, a great job of training up each of the test engineers to be responsible and feel empowered with the automation. And now we have Lynn, who has just been awesome to work with who's a lot of deep automation experience, working across at the framework level, but also encouraging each of the testers in the teams and helping them. And I was sharing this earlier. Lynn's approach to automation, I think it's summed up quite nicely, that if you can't understand what the test does by reading the title, it shouldn't be there and it gets deleted. And we've seen a couple of examples of like 50-character test titles and like, what does that do? And it's like gone. So we're all about keeping things maintainable, reliable, and just not backing ourselves into a corner with the automation, making sure it's continuing to add value. I'm just going to hand back to Andrew briefly to talk about some of the methodology.
So Michael, you need to actually post the link to the journey article.
Oh, sorry, it went
Yep.
to just Seku.
So yeah, so just talking about testing methodology. So probably won't surprise you to hear that at Ryman we are context-driven testers, which means that our test methodology varies according to the context we're operating in. And it also won't surprise you that in a company the size of Ryman, we have many different operating contexts. We have lots of different stakeholders. They have lots of different expectations about the role of the test team and the role of individual testers, and they have varying needs. For example, the test approach we adopt for an upgrade to a payroll management system is going to be quite different to the approach that we use when we introduce a new feature that allows village residents to book events via the resident app. Context-driven testing encourages the use of a lot of different tools that help us operate successfully in this environment. Some of these are visual modeling and other forms of model-based testing. Context-driven testers love to talk about models. Here's another one, the heuristic test strategy model developed by James Bach as applied in the Rapid Software Testing School of Thought. Collaborative test techniques like pair testing and visual test design. And we automate our checking activity and make the barriers to this really low as part of an integrated human-centric testing strategy. I would argue that almost any good tester operates as a context-driven tester. They have to be effective in their role. At Ryman, what we try and do is be open about this with our stakeholders and bring them with us on our testing journey. And that's the methodology talk.
Cool, thanks, Andrew. Right, so we're just getting pretty close to wrapping up, and we just thought it'd be good to talk about a day in the life. And there's about 4 or 5 different days in the life of a tester on this project, depending on what they're doing. You know, as Andrew said, we're looking to do the next right thing, and you know, we do have test scripts are used sometimes, and some testers find it really useful to, you know, do some brainstorming, document some test cases. I think there's nothing particularly, I would say, super different to the in-sprint processes that we use from a lot of other Canterbury-based companies. Each team is empowered to choose their own methodology. For example, we have teams that are focused more on Kanban and just controlling the amount of work in progress at the time. We have other teams that are sort of pushing more for sort of pure Scrum, and that's awesome. For example, the team up in Auckland is engaging a bit with some Scrum training and just, you know, keeping their team fresh and empowered with what they're doing. So I think any regular sprint with work coming off the backlog into the sprint, the team committing it, I think all the breakdown, the planning, the estimating is pretty typical. I think with maybe something that's a little bit different is the automation side. So we, depending on what sort of technology you're a part of, you might be automating a completed story from last sprint, or you might be building an automated test that's failing until the API definitions developed and deployed. So we have, as you saw from the image before, we have testers embedded in each of the teams. We have a test automation specialist across the top, just supporting sort of at the framework level and, you know, very senior. But we also meet informally twice a week as a test team, and that's really where that sort of knowledge sharing around, hey, what are you working on? Is it going to impact me? Are there any major integration sort of changes coming up? Is this feature that products, you know, wanting to get out there have changes from multiple teams? And if so, we might say, well, we actually want to do before we release. And just coming back, sorry, I missed one bit. So each team is empowered to release when they want. At the start of this project, we were certainly doing big sort of release style trains. It would take multiple months to get a single release out to prod, which I think was a part of just the project spinning up, teams maturing. But, you know, where it is at today, teams are completely autonomous. They can release on demand multiple times a day if they want. That's not super common, but totally possible. Multiple times a week, definitely. And the way we manage that is just through communication around if we want to do any further levels of testing. And one example, just sort of in beginning to wrap up, recently, well, over the last half a year, we've had a couple of end-to-end cross-functional test sessions, UAT test sessions, and you'd think, well, UAT testing, hands-on testing, that's really low value. We've actually found it super high value, and I would say out of 12, every quarter we might do one of these, and we might do a total of 2 hours or a total of 4 hours, 2 2-hour sessions. And typically we open it up to anyone within Ryman, including outside of our teams. It might be product, marketing, and people can sign up to be a part of the session. We do testing in pairs. We might plan a little bit of the testing with some test scenarios. Maybe there's some test cases, but typically we'll kick off a session. People will jump onto Zoom. We'll spend 15 minutes going over the new functionality. We'll pair people up and then really just kick them off into it. And for an hour and a half, they have to be fully mentally plugged in to what they're testing, going through the workflows, documenting as they go. And then we'll typically bounce back for the last 15, 20 minutes. Everyone shares their test notes. We document what was found, and some lucky or unlucky person puts that together in a shared doc and sends it to the appropriate product owners to review. I don't think we've ever found a P1 showstopper bug in one of those sessions, but what it has done is brought people across the business together who don't usually work together. It's helped with increased knowledge of the product, increased knowledge sharing between teams, and there's certainly been new feature ideas and some bugs that have come out of those sessions that have made it into teams' backlogs as well. So our hands-on UAT end-to-end test sessions are definitely the cherry on the top, but they're a very, very small percentage, but high value thing that we do as well. Cool. I think it'd be good to roll out into questions pretty soon.
Perfect.
I did just want to quickly finish with good enough for mum or dad. So when I first joined Ryman 2 years ago, the CEO brought this, Gordy, brought this out in every meeting that he was running, this idea around good enough for mum and dad, and just how at the genesis of Ryman, when it started here in Christchurch, man, how many years ago? I don't know, 35 years ago. That the founder was trying to find somewhere for his mum and dad and was so disheartened at the quality of what was on offer. That was sort of what spawned the birth of the Ryman business, and it's really carried through the company and into the development and testing life cycle as well, this kind of thinking. And there was a recent example of just a couple of weeks ago. We had noticed that one resident in one village in Auckland had the app installed and could not get the login screen to load on the Wi-Fi in her village, so in her apartment, so private Wi-Fi, but she could go on mobile data, it worked. She'd go to the guest Wi-Fi, it would work. So this was a P1 issue for one person out of 3,500 people. And, looking at that, just at a dollar and cents, thinking about, well, no, we're done. It's just one person. We're not going to waste any money here. But when you lay this over it, if that was my mother or my father, and we had sold them this new app that was being developed, and then they couldn't actually load it, would you be happy with that? And we actually got agreement from the product owner, and we sent an Android developer to this person's resident's apartment, and he spent a good chunk of an afternoon just helping her sort the issue, debug, and develop a fix that was that is pending to be released in the next build. So cool. I think that is me, Seku. We do have I know we've got questions. We also have the shout out for training next week. Should we do the shout out for training right at the end, or?
Yeah, I think you can do it now if it's quick.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Because the questions are coming in, so
yep.
Yeah, you can definitely do this now.
Cool. So we have some training coming up next week, and Andrew's just going to quickly talk about that and drop some contact details in the chat.
Yeah, so look, really quick for me. So most of the Ryman testers and myself are going to be doing 18 hours of training with James Spark next week on his rapid software testing course. So yeah, the course is delivered over 4 days. So if you want to spend some time with one of the premier testing thought leaders of the last 3 decades, I've dropped some contact details into the chat there for you. So obviously just the course homepage, but also my Ryman email if you want to ask any questions. And just to be clear, neither Ryman nor myself benefit in any way if you sign up, but James Buck definitely will. Okay, that's it.
Awesome. That's great, Michael. I think we're running into the question session. That's so many things to unpack from your personal journey and also from a condensed version of everything that both you and Andrew put it up. So since we are having like probably 15 minutes of time, I'm going to go with some selective questions. So I'm going to ask the questions about as an outsider, for people I saw a lot of unicorn emojis. So if you're an outsider, if people are looking at test engineering, what is the kind of notion that is different to when you're inside than being outside? And how difficult it is for people to start out into a test engineering career, and how do you find our Bruce? For people who is outside, how do they go and find their Bruce that you had?
You're asking me that?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Look, I think you don't learn software testing at university. Like they don't. There is no software testing. It's not part of a computer science degree. So I think it's just becoming part of the community. I think coming along to events like this and coming along to face-to-face events and just beginning to connect. And also, if you're going to land a role in software testing and you haven't done it before, you're obviously completely green. So, the only thing that'll stop you getting that initial role is when you give up trying. Keep going. You'll definitely get there.
And I'd just like to add, I just dropped my own email address in the chat there. So, email me if you're interested.
Exactly. Go and reach out to them to see how, if you're really interested in being a software tester, how to start the journey as such, what kind of courses you can take outside the degrees that it doesn't have this thing. That will be great for people as such. Dave Park, who's an intermediate tester, has asked, you mentioned that you have automated tests that run across the master branch and performance tests. Do you also have automated tests integrated into a CI/CD process? If so, how and when?
Very good question. We actually have Lynn on the call who was primed to answer any automation questions. Lynn, are you able to jump in and answer Dave's question?
Yeah, sure. So we do have the master of masters on the integration server. There's a test server that will host the master branch from all the different teams and then deploy in the morning, 7 o'clock. And then we have, after that's been deployed, as part of the pipeline, the last 2 stages will run the Ready API automated tests and the Cypress automated tests. And then in the afternoon, we will run the performance tests that then the results will be recorded in the Azure DevOps cloud, and then we can be analyzed. Hope that answers the question.
Dave Park, does it answer your question? While he can comment on it, I think one of the things that is tied with that same thing, as how does because in the concept of agile and DevOps, so many things that has evolved in it, how does test engineer play an important role in the software development cycle, in terms of how much does it save businesses, and I also want to talk maybe it's kind of also connected to testing in production, because one of the things that people don't often do is they wait until the entire cycle is finished and then they start the testing process, where we integrate testing in production every time the tester says. So talk to us about that.
So we definitely try to avoid turning our end users into testers, and we what's going to production. We want to have very high levels of confidence. We know all the very strict, disciplined processes around development testing. Ryman does obviously pay to have experienced test professionals, test engineers within the development teams. And I know there are some companies maybe moving away from that a little bit. I think the value we're continuing to see is just just continuing to capture a large number of issues before they get anywhere near production, keeping the automation stable, running, and the new features automated as well. The other side is, I think we're quite lucky at Ryman. We also get really good access to our end users, and it depends what sort of team you're in. But we talk a lot about bringing, and this has always been the last 15 years, bringing the voice of the customer, into the product development process. But to be able to do that, you actually need to know who your customer is, and to know them, you actually need to spend time with them. So we've been very lucky on this project to have days and days and days, weeks actually in villages, side by side. I had an amazing experience with a 93-year-old resident up in Auckland last year, and just sat with him for an hour as he installed the app, as he got it going, creating his account. He's just sharing his life story with me. But at the end of it, just seeing the smile on his face using the tech was such an incredible experience. And then, just sort of bringing those stories and other observations back into the early stages of development and product design, I think is something we're very uniquely placed to do as testers.
That's fantastic. Louisa has asked a quick question of how often do you get mom and dad to test when you're talking about user experience of sorts?
Yeah, well, how often do we get mum and dad? Yeah, I don't really know how to. It's the concept, right? It is the concept, but we do. There's actually a generation skip. So my mum's in her 60s, so it would be my grandparents if they were in the village. But we do have direct access through Slack to what's happening in the villages. So we actually do get feedback. If something's going wrong, they can talk. The residents talk to village staff and they raise that. So we don't have a help desk, a service sort of desk agreement. We have direct comms, and we are still in a position where we can address those concerns immediately, almost always same day. And that gets all fed back into the product teams as well.
That's fantastic. A lot of questions kept coming. I'm going to close the question channel while I'm going to go with the questions that we currently have. Ryan had asked, how do you keep good testers in testing when the other roles have the glamour? I know a lot of his peers have dropped off over the years.
Maybe Andrew or someone else from the Ryman team might want to answer, but just to say, I mean, what is the glamour? Is that like higher paying? Because you can chase money. You can really chase money and find the highest paying thing. And if that's your jam, that's cool. But I think sticking to your authentic self and who you are and going in a role like that is where you want to be. I don't really get, well, I kind of get the glamour side, there are some high paying things, but I think there's a lot more to work-life balance, and actually enjoying turning up every day is good. Enjoying the people that you work with, feeling like your end user, having a connection with your end users is awesome as well. So I guess.
Can I just to jump in with a little bit of an observation as well? And this probably just speaks to my own sort of like perspective. But I mean, I think that there's a lot of value personally in really thinking about testing and the value that it can add. I mean, the reason I got into testing myself was that, I saw it being done really badly. And thought I could do it better, and I guess I still see that in a lot of instances, and I'm still motivated by that. I'm a bit of a testing nerd and a bit of a testing geek, and that's what keeps me motivated. So I think, I mean, but it makes a real difference to people. And I guess if you bring that mindset to your job, I'm going to get involved. I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to meet people where they are. I'm going to add value where they are. Then that's what keeps me turning up every day.
Right. Last two questions. Greg, are you ready to ask your question? Probably. If he's not, I'm going to ask his question. Greg has asked, with quality as a mindset across the teams, wondering what approach you have taken to developers contributing to testing, like Ready API, Groovy scripting, Cypress, etc. Or are you still seeing a strong separation of test versus development? That is connected to your,
Do we have Liam on the call? Liam from Ryman?
Don't think so.
Don't
I'm
think so.
going to answer a question with a question. So when is a developer a tester?
Yeah.
When they're doing testing.
all the time would be my thoughts.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you have any comments on it, Michael?
So I think in some ways our software test engineers have had to prove themselves technically. And there's been a lot of discussions around, well, what if our unit tests percentage of coverage is this high and we're doing these other tests, what are you even here for, doing your tests up at this other level? And we've had some really good examples of the continued value outside of that work and the approach the developers are already doing. So I think we get pushed, and I think that's really healthy, and we push back, and we're forced to continue to evolve. Do we see a lot, just thinking, you're sort of talking about collaboration or contribution. There is maybe still a little bit of gap around who's writing what sorts of tests and who's, I think it's more around where's the time being billed to in some ways as well, where you've got like a framework that sits over the top, not one team. But anyway.
The last question, Swati Malik has asked, are these automated tests that are integrated into CI/CD pipelines or run in all environments where features are deployed, or just in dedicated automated TST environments? I think very technical. Yes.
Cool. Lynn, do you want to jump in?
We do have different levels of testing. So we have business critical regression and smoke test. And for the features, we will, for the developer's code, when they check in, they will be run the business critical. So that's on the pull request, as per pull request. And then the nightly run in the mornings, when we deploy everyone's code to the integration environment, we run all the regression tests on all of our different tools, if different levels, Ready API, Cypress, and performance. And so that, and then when we do the release level, we do business critical only. So anything that's critical enough to stop release. Yeah, same philosophy for the check-in, critical enough to stop the check-in. Regression is has a bigger pool if we spot an error, spot a problem, but it's not critical enough, we will log it, and then the developers can have some time to fix it before next release or the next check-in.
Right.
So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you for that, Lynn. I think I have, hopefully that answers your question, Swati. I have one more last question, just a quick one. I think in terms of a lot of advances in terms of the machine learning, automation, AI, like, what is the impact? Because I know like software testing goes hand in hand with the software development process, but how much of an impact is it going to have on a software testing, performance testing, and security? Or is there one particular trend that we're going to see in the next few years?
Well, I think we had our first bug opened by AI last year when ChatGPT, when ChatGPT-4 was first released?
Yeah.
And it fixed a grammar error. And we raised the bug, and that was cool, and it started the conversation. We've actually been having discussion around AI and the impact that's going to be having or not on software testing as a profession, and the role and the value. Maybe in the mail, it's a massive thing. Actually, James Bark and Michael Bolton just spent 40 man-hours responding to this very question. So these are some of the most prominent test professionals in the world for the last couple of decades have put some really significant thought into exactly this in the last week. So maybe we can share a link to that to have a look at.
What is their name? What is their names?
Well, that's Michael Bolton and James Bark. I think that was on their Twitter and LinkedIn, but we do have the link that we can share in the mail and the response that goes out to this.
That would be so good, actually. I think I'm going to close it down today. Sorry, Sudha, I think we are just in the end of it. I want people to go, but obviously feel free to reach out to Michael in LinkedIn. He has put his linked in very top of the thing, which I can copy and paste, or you can paste again, Michael. But thank you for both of your time, Michael and Andrew and Lynn and so many people from Ryman who's doing absolutely amazing work to keep the dad and mums happy and the things moving along well. It's incredible to do, and one of the things that we want to do, like Christchurch, Christchurch has been really good with a lot of communities to encourage people to get and do it as such in different kind of technology chains. But the testing field, meetup groups, has not been alive for a long time. That we discussed actually. So if somebody is keen to actually get up and curate these people together and support each other in a lot of ways as a testing group, because this is going to be a massive job skills coming up in the few years, and to reignite that group, we can connect you to the respective testing meetup group lead, and we also have funding for people who's going to take up that to run these events as well through Canterbury Tech. I think some of the team would post a fair to apply for the funding, but please do reach out to either Louisa, me from Canterbury Tech to talk about this software testing meetup group that we have, so you can get to connect with each other and share a lot of ideas and help each other out in whatever stages of the test engineering self that you are in. So with that, I have one fact that I'm going to tell to walk away from. So apparently I found out we take about 530 liters of oxygen every day to just survive without even noticing. So it's just a reminder to be grateful for that we're existing. We don't have to do anything. We're just taking a lot of oxygen. But yeah, just go out, take the sunshine and oxygen. And I am going to leave it to Louisa if she wants to add anything.
Thanks, Nico. I'll take a deep breath.
Yes, and take a deep
Thanks
breath.
so much for everyone for sharing your lunchtime with us. And like Seku said, we have created a meetup fund with support from sponsors AWS. So if you wanted to volunteer some time to help reinvigorate that Testing Professionals Network meetup group, I'm sure that there are a lot of people here that are very interested in sharing ideas and going deeper technically into that. So do reach out and let us know, and we can put you in touch with the right people. Don't forget to get your Tech Summit tickets. Thank you so much, Michael, Andrew, and Lynn, for your time today. Much appreciated, Team Ryman. Thanks very much. See you all in October, if not before. Otherwise, we'll see you at the Tech Summit on the 5th of September.